right. Here we go. Episode 18 of The Drop in the house. Oh, my goodness. It is good to be back. MK, we are back with episode 18 on a Friday night.
Yeah, I like Friday
First
night.
time. I like this Friday
night.
A
little bit past my bedtime. But
yeah, that's all right. I feel like that song. What's that? Johnny, what's his name? Is Just Got Paid Friday Night. Party hunting.
Yeah.
Feeling
I
right.
Get my second wind.
You know, that's. This is our first episode back since the start of the school year, MK.
I know.
We have been back for almost 2 full weeks.
It feels like 2 full centuries.
Yeah, it feels like dog years, man.
Yeah,
it's been one heck of a ride so far. So many things that we are just catching on the fly as they're getting thrown at us, and holy cow, just layouts of rooms and rosters and the technology and trying to keep kids engaged at home virtually and in person. It's like
it's a juggling act, to say the least.
It is a juggling act. I would be shocked if the rate of alcoholism among educators does not increase by the Christmas break. I don't know how people are going to do this, but we're doing the best we can.
I feel like if the teachers are struggling, what are the students doing?
Yeah, the students are fine.
Actually, yeah, the students have been great. I mean, that's one thing I will say, MK, that the kids have been very resilient. They have been amazing. They've been very patient with us. I know MK and I feel like if we don't know what's happening from minute to minute in our room, we both feel like
we're out of control.
We're out of control. Yeah, and in fact, was spiraling. In fact, we found out that there was a camera in the faculty room earlier this week. We actually have footage of MK in the faculty room at the beginning of the week. MK, do you have that video?
Yeah, I have that video.
Pull that video up.
Here we go.
Here's him.
Oh.
Yeah, that was me. Yeah. One step short of flipping the desk, though. That was me.
And there he goes. And the best part about it is, what? Everybody just watches him, and then one person takes his seat. Like that's. I feel like that's how it's been going. You know, like I've never MK. I think what is this, your 13th year?
13th, yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen you so frazzled.
Yeah.
In my life. Like this man was at his wit's end with it. It was all about what? The tech wasn't working.
Nothing was working, and all you want to do is do your job, you know. And I lost it. You were there. Vin was there.
It was, and it was just, you know. I know it's funny because Mike's nickname for me is Zena, and it's been really hard to stay level-headed. Like if I wasn't laughing, like I just laugh it off now. And when it happens, I'm just like, hey, you know what? It is what it is. And you look at the kids, let it roll off, and you're like, dude, just bear with us. We'll get through it.
And, they're not stressing.
No, heck no, they're not stressing. By the way, that voice that you hear coming in, MK and I, holy cow, how excited. This has been the highlight that we've been looking forward to that's gotten us through this entire week, right?
Yes,
we have been following Mr. Ryan Thomas Monahan for years on social media. Yes, years.
To the point where, like I said the other day, that it's like, you know, we've watched him kind of grow in career-wise, and then also with his family and stuff like that. Right. So most people that you've been following for a while, and you feel connected to, although you're really not. You know what I mean?
Right.
Digitally.
Digitally, yeah. Exactly. And so when we finally got him, I reached out to him a couple of weeks ago. And I told him about what we're doing with the program, and he immediately was like, "Yeah, dude, that's cool. Set me up. We'll do what we can do." And I was just like, "What?" And then I text MK, and he's like, "What? We got who?" So I'm just like, "Wow, this has been just in the making all week. We've been so psyched, and we were so excited when we got to talk to Ryan at the beginning of the week for the pre-check, and we were just we chopped it up for like almost an hour and a half with this guy. It was great, man. Just talking about life and art and just all kinds of stuff. So we're going to get to some good stuff today. He's down in his studio today, and we got so many questions for him about just his space and the crazy stuff he's got and his influence. I mean, this man is he just bleeds creativity, bro. He's just got it going crazy. It's just crazy. So, Ryan, welcome to the show, brother. We're just so excited to have you.
I'm excited to be here. I am.
How's
podcasts?
You don't do see? So that's man.
If you couldn't tell,
we don't do them. If you can't,
we
couldn't tell too.
Yeah,
right.
But I know, like Ryan was just like the whole thing with Zoom. He's like, "How do I Zoom?" And I gotta get my wife's Zoom code, and I gotta figure all this out. And everything went perfect at the beginning of the week. I'm like, it should be fine. It's gonna be great. And then sure enough, here he is. We got him on the show. We're so excited to have him. So, Ryan, we just, what, man? It's the three of us just sitting and chatting about why we love being artistic and how important creativity is to the three of us. And so why don't we get started? You're out in Illinois, correct?
I am. I'm about an hour outside of Chicago.
Okay, hour outside of Chicago. And that's you said it was Yorkville?
Yorkville, yeah.
Yorkville,
it's like a tiny little town.
Tiny town. And that's originally your origin story. The Ryan Thomas Monahan origin story is like rival to like Wolverines. So like we got to get to that. It's just like it's so interesting. So you're born in Yorkville, Illinois?
More or less, yeah. I'm from right around here, and then we moved to Yorkville when I was like a child.
Okay.
And that's where I went to high school, and I left here and I went to New York, upstate New York. And that's where I went to community college for art. Right. But then come full circle, I moved back to Illinois, lived in Chicago for a few years, and then I ended up settling down after getting married out here, back in Yorkville.
And coming back.
So now I'm in my basement, in my house in Yorkville, Illinois.
That's awesome. Listen, man, that's like, that's full circle, bro. Full circle.
It is. It really is.
Yeah. So let's get right to it from, you're growing up, you're in Yorkville, Illinois. What is it like for a kid who is, thinking about what they want to do, how they want to get involved with being creative? Like, what is it for you that sets that light bulb off? How old are you? Do you remember that first time?
I guess, I don't know. I feel like it came from tattooing. I always liked tattoos, and I guess the earliest memory, well, not the earliest, outside of like seeing people when I was young with tattoos. My parents are not tattooed, but I remember my older sister getting a tattoo the next town over. And then like 2 days later, I went to that tattoo shop and just like loitered, just like, went in there and just, touched the counters and was just like, "Hey, how you doing?"
And they're like, "Get this guy out of here."
yeah. And just like, now that I'm older, I'm sure those guys were like, "Who is this little..."
How old, do you remember how old you were? Like, how old were you?
I think I went with older friends, and I don't know, I was probably 15 because at that time you had to be, I don't know, the law was different, but you could get tattooed at like 16 with your parents' consent.
Okay. Right.
Depending on the tattoo shop and stuff like that.
Right.
So I remember, it wasn't out of the idea that I could get a tattoo. So I was like, I'm going to go to the tattoo shop. And I always like to draw tattoos and stuff. So that's pretty much where I feel like first really started pushing my creativity, was drawing tattoos.
Really? So what is it about that whole scene? Is it like that outlaw kind of counterculture thing?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, yeah, punk rock and skateboarding and tattoos and, it's us and them, mentality when I was younger. Like I didn't feel like I fit in. I wasn't like exiled, and I wasn't like, like made fun of or anything like that, but I definitely knew that I was different than, let's say, my sister and her friends, or so I think that, and then once I kind of fell into it, it was one of those things that my parents were like, well, he'll grow out of it. He'll grow out of it, and it just snowballed.
And they're still waiting for you to grow out of
it. Well, and they didn't help because, my dad, he was into motorcycles and stuff like when he was younger, and my mom was she's a partier, or she was, and I did. I don't know. I'm trying to think of what it was, but something happened between my parents, and they got my ear pierced when I was like 12, little. Yeah. And from that point on, I was like the kid in school who had an earring, like 1995, 6, 7, and in Yorkville, Illinois, where there wasn't much. So that set it in motion, because from that point on, I felt like a badass.
Right. And, now you have to be that kid.
Right. And I remember like, as soon as the winds of change happened and it became cool to have 2 earrings, that's when it was like, I got to go and get my other ear pierced. Yeah. And my parents were like, no, what have we done? And
we've created a monster.
Right. And I just remember always hearing them, say like, well, when you're older, you're going to look back and laugh at all this. And now, I'm like entering my mid-30s and still the same, haven't changed.
Yeah. That's awesome.
You know what though, like, to be honest with you, I think that's more applaudable that you just stuck to what you believed in, well, like so many,
for sure
and I mean, so many people come through and they're like, oh, that's not who I really was, and
it just shows that he knew who he was.
You knew who you were, man.
Yeah. And I always, like, even to this day, even more so to this day, now that I always find myself like talking with people or doing an interview here or something, I always just try to be authentic to myself. Like, it's really easy, especially on the internet. I always tell friends and stuff about this, to like portray yourself as something you're not. Even unintentionally, like the internet, no one shows the bad days. What I mean? No one's like, hey, I haven't made a dime in 2 weeks. Have a great Monday.
Especially in the art world.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Creative anything, and I feel like it kind of just, like you said, it's just who I always had been, so I kind of just try to, like, even more so now, keep true to myself.
Right. Let me ask you, Ryan, do you think that sets younger people up for greater failure if they rely so much on that social media feed to give them a sense of reality, especially in the art world? Like, as a professional practicing artist, we have high school kids who are, on these feeds all day long, looking at, all these, like you said, hey, yo, I just sold a piece, man. Like, like you said, and they think that that's every day.
Right. Well, see, and it's funny, real quick before we go into that, I make it a point. Since day one, I never announce when I sell a piece of art. I don't know why. I've always, like, no offense to anybody that does, because maybe they are like, I'm so excited, I want to share it with all my friends,
Right.
And that's cool. But to me, it's always been like, the guy who like had a good work week and he's like, oh, I'm paying my mortgage, 2 months out in advance. It's like, okay, cool. Right. So I just always try to, like, I guess I consider it somewhat me being private, but yeah, I think, as far as kids, social media and all that, I mean, I don't know any high school kids personally at this stage in my life. I don't know,
right. You will in a couple of years.
Right. And I know young kids, I know, like older people, but no one in high school. But I think I'd be worried, because I was telling my wife today, like, I remember when I was tattooing and starting to tattoo, it was back when you had MySpace pages. I didn't even know what Facebook was. To me, Facebook, either it didn't exist yet or it was something for college people, which I was not. And and so like now it's almost like if you're an artist and you don't have an Instagram, it's kind of like, what?
You really an artist then?
Right. Because it's like, it is a very valuable tool, but it's also, I think, sometimes can be handicapping, or I don't know the correct term, but because it gives you a false sense of reality, like whether it be you're watching another artist who's just pumping your feed full of hocus pocus, not real stuff, which is fine, whatever. But let's say you're sitting there being like, this is what I'm going to do. This person's doing it. I can do it. When it's like, okay, like we said earlier, have you seen all the bad days and the work that went into it?
Right. Exactly. I feel like it creates, like you said, it creates this false narrative at times where the reality is you're not always producing and you're not always selling.
Right.
And
that's what I was saying. I'm starting to learn that Instagram is people make money on Instagram, like the influencing and all that, to where at one point I learned that, like, I never care about followers either. I lose followers every day. Like, I see my number go down more than up. I cannot focus on that because it is irrelevant. It is, to me, it's fake. Like, I know all you guys are out there, but to me, I'm making art in my basement like I've been doing my whole life, and all these people just are showing up to watch, and that's cool. But I think, like, at one point I realized, oh, wait, if I can gain followers, I could then, the more followers I have, the more of an audience I have to sell my artwork to. And at one point I realized that. So then I started taking it very seriously, and I was like, okay, you got to be consistent with content. And some days, like, I get up and I don't come down here. I just sit on the couch all day, just have a day off, but I'll never post that shit because no one's coming to my Instagram and being like, what's Ryan doing today? I think it's more, what's Ryan making today? So if I don't have anything to show that's of value, I will post something from the past. And a lot of people who aren't like savvy or know me, they think, oh, he's constantly working, morning, afternoon, night. He's always posting work. All I'm doing is sitting on my damn phone. Like you said, it's kind of a thing, but you have to do that if you want to play the Instagram followers game where you're trying to gain. And to me, like I said, I never cared about that until I realized, wait a minute, this aligns with my business. And even
how much business do you get from Instagram?
Most of it? Ton. Well, I like to consider I have two groups of clients or collectors. I have the people that do not have Instagram, and they go to my website or they just go to Google and what have you and stumble upon me. And then I have the people that are on Instagram, and I even, over the course of the time of being on Instagram, I developed separate markets.
Really?
Where I sell big artwork that's, multiple thousands of dollars to people who buy it over the phone, over the internet, without seeing it in person. And then it's like nothing, they'll drop 5 G's like it's me spending $50 on eBay. But those are often, not always, those are not often the people that are lurking on Instagram.
Those are more serious collectors.
And now they are on Instagram. I have sold art of that value through Instagram, but there's also a group of people like myself, and I'm in this group where, I'll pop for $300 on the internet if it's something I really want. This guy's good, I know it, I'll buy it. But there's a group where they don't have 5 G's to spend on artwork, and I'm one of those people, to where I wanted to create a piece of my artwork, a product that I could sell to the high rollers, so to speak, and then just the everyday Joes. So
I love that.
And that's where, like, the things like the Bellevue doors came from, and all what I call smalls.
You consider yourself, in terms of and I know we talked about it earlier in the week, we don't like to categorize artists so much, but if you had to say what kind of work you do, you claim that you are a sculptor, right? Correct?
Yeah, well, yeah, that's such a hard thing. But yeah, I mean, just because to me it's a broad term, you know, because I don't want to say I'm a miniaturist because there are times that I make giant matchbooks.
Right.
You know, I play with scale more than, you know, yeah, I do miniature most. So you could call me a miniaturist. I wouldn't be like, hey, don't do that. But I mean, and then it's also like professionally speaking to where, you know, I'll be out at like a dinner with someone's family or something and they'll be like, oh, you know, what do you do for a living? And sometimes it's easier for me to say I'm an artist or a sculptor than being like I'm a miniature model maker. Because then they're like, what? And, you know, I've gotten everything from they hear model and they're like, you're a model? And I'm like, not at all what I said. And then, you know, people immediately.
But if you need somebody.
Right, you know, and, exactly. But like, then, you know, because like me, before I really got into this whole world, when I heard miniatures, I thought of like dollhouse furniture, you know, action figure toys, stuff like that, small things. So I just wanted to be careful not to be roped into one thing. And I felt like when I was starting to get momentum with like my Instagram and getting more followers and ultimately getting my name out there more and more, I was even more conscientious of sticking to artist, because, you know, I wanted to attract a gallery, you know, and a gallery in my mind went after an artist, a sculptor, you know, those common terms. So that was my goal and I stuck to it. And I guess ever since then, that's just how I've been. And I
think Ryan, that's a great message though for our kids, because you flipped the script essentially. You took what could be construed as a different type or approach to making art and said, no, this is quote unquote fine art. This is not hobby making. This is not, you know, this is not like, it's not like you're like my grandfather putting together a USS carrier in the basement with a kit. You know what I'm saying? Like
exactly. Well, exactly. And up until I was told that it was fine art, I was unsure. I didn't know. But one of the turning points in my career was, you know, when I was still working full time as a graphic designer, I would come home and work in my home studio building things, you know, using just common, you know, paper and foam and what have you. And the first 3 pieces I made, I was sharing it on the internet, on Instagram, and a gentleman who owns a few galleries in New York City, I'm not going to say his name, I don't know if I should or not, but he approached me and said, hey, he didn't know anything about me. He said, I want to buy this piece.
Oh, wow.
And at that time, I hadn't sold anything. And I kind of still liked the artwork. I wasn't, you know, of course I was willing to sell it, but I wasn't ready. So I just named a price that I felt I really wanted for it. You know, I wasn't trying to get rich off anybody, but I didn't want to just give it away, you know? And up until then, I had never sold anything over $100. You know, I sold like a marker drawing for $50 to a buddy. But so anyways, he said, so I was like, you know, it was $2,000. And he said, I'll take it. And then he was like, do you have any other ones for sale? And I said, well, I got this one. And I said, this one's 2 G's too. And he said, I'll take that one too.
And you're like, I should have asked for 5 G's.
Well, and so my first thought was, oh shit, you know, because I don't work with galleries at that point, nothing, you know. I was like, did he want to buy these to sell at his gallery in New York City? And then I was like, is that how it works? I didn't know, you know. So after a few days of thinking and I shipped it out, I was like, hey, you know, are you going to sell these or something? And he's like, oh, no. He's like, I just bought a house in upstate New York and I want to decorate it. And these are going to go in that house. So I was like, okay, cool. So he gets them delivered. And then that night opens them. He's like, hey, these are awesome. I want to buy anything else you have.
Wow.
So I sold him everything else I had, which was 1 piece. And so at that point, I had sold everything I made, 3 pieces, for more money than I'd ever gotten in my life for artwork.
Wow.
So from that point on, and to somebody that I didn't know, but I knew he knew the art world. He owned galleries in New York City, and at that time, New York City was like, oh, New York City, New York, and so I used him as a bar, and from that point on, everything has been based off those pieces selling for that amount of money.
That's amazing.
Yeah, because I would have never charged that much. I would have never, because you never know your own value, especially out of the gate.
He gave you value, right? Or you gave yourself a value that maybe you could have gave yourself more value.
I probably could have, but at the same time, it's funny because looking back at those pieces, it was like, oh man, like the art was cool, but
you've evolved so much more from
so
that.
quick, and and it went. And like my big thing is all about presentation. The artwork has to be beautiful, of course.
Yeah.
But you can't make a beautiful piece of art and throw it in a shit frame or like hot glue it together and have it look like crap. To me, and that was kind of another thing, taking it back to where I wanted to have it be fine art. I wanted to make collectibles. People that were like, oh, it's so good, I have to have it. I collect them. And so those early pieces, they were pretty rough, and he still has them. And and like to look at that piece side by side with something I produced 4 years later, it would almost look like two totally different people did it.
That's amazing.
But like he's the one that kind of set my bar for everything. And at the time, he had no idea that I had just made these, never made anything like it before. I was a new and upcoming artist. He just
sometimes that's all it takes. He took a chance. I think, Ryan, I think that's what's so great about that message, especially for our kids, is so many things to pull out of what you just said. The first is that I love that you are so intent on the presentation being so important, because when we tell the kids, even something as simple as make sure that you stretch the frame a certain way, or when you fold the canvas, that you don't see the corners showing on the edges, and they blow you off like, come on, like really, Mr. Sena, like come on, like no, like if this is going up and it's got your name on it, your reputation is on the line.
You're putting your name on it. You sure as shit want to put your heart and soul into it, or flip it. Don't put your name on it because
it's a representation of your work ethic. You know what I mean? It's
and it extends past the artwork.
Of course.
Myself, I notice those things, little details.
It adds credibility.
Right. And that's the other thing, especially for an artist that's just trying to find their footing. There's no easier time to set that standard for yourself than right out of the gate. Like, don't be a half-assed anything, especially an artist.
If you don't value yourself, nobody will value you. You have to value yourself,
Right. And like you just said, those little details, it shows, the extra care and stuff.
Right.
So.
Yeah. I mean, that's it's so,
thinking
it's
about
so important.
After Dave Leffner's, when he sent the prints and he like had them packaged in like
that was crazy.
Its own custom box, and it was like, and I remember when you were packing up in your post the Bellevue doors and how like the backs of them looked. It was and you have your logo, your branding. I mean you see everything in your Instagram, but then like your Instagram, I never really went to your website until this week. But your website too is just like, it's presented nicely. I was just telling Tom before we came on, it's clean. The images are high quality. You got your logo. And even like the about you it was the way that it was presented was like, it was helpful to the people to learn about you and your process, which was really cool too.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I feel like that is all stuff that I learned within the last 4 years of being a self-employed full-time artist. And then I also feel like that's stuff that they don't ever teach you in school. Like basic
business
stuff. Like, it is. And it's almost like if you're going to be a car salesman, you sure as shit better have a business card, because how are you going to get out there? Just like if you're an artist, you sure as shit better have a website, because you're not mailing people examples of your work. How are they going to see it? It's either shit or you're off the pot, because you take it seriously, and if you don't, it's half-assed, and then you can't expect yourself to succeed if you're not dotting all your I's and crossing your T's, and that includes a website. and branding. And not to say, you know, me coming from a design background, I'm heavy into branding. Before I did this art, I worked with certain companies to brand them, you know, and that was part of my job, doing freelance design. And so I know as soon as I started to develop a following and almost create like a brand, like myself is the brand, I am the brand.
Yeah.
And you know, I wanted to make a logo and get business cards and do a website. And sometimes that stuff can get in the way, because I know artists, not even artists. I know people that it's like they wanna, you know, I wanna make a business.
It could be a full-time job, just that part of it by itself.
Oh, for sure.
Or they think the opposite, or they think they have a perfect logo and the perfect letterhead, and they think their business is established.
Right. Where it's like, okay, cool.
I'm one of those people. I love like, you know, I teach graphic design, 2 sections of graphic design in the class, and like, I mean, Tom knows, like if it's like making a logo or anything like that, a T-shirt, like, you know, I love doing it. It's like, dude, I'll make the business before the business even exists.
Right. Well, and that's what I'm saying. You know, like artists, sometimes, you know, there's an order to, in my opinion, especially because in your head, it's not just like you're physically, you know, don't go making business cards if you don't have a website yet, because you need that info. But it's kind of like, you don't even need to be focusing on that. You don't need that if you don't have, you know, you don't have your art down yet, you know, I mean, and it's kind of like, oh, well, you know, an online portfolio, yes, but like building a business around your art, start with selling some art. Once you sell some art and you're like, wow, I'm selling so much art, I could turn this into a business. I could be a full-time artist. That's when you go. It's kind of like what we talked about earlier in the week. Don't be focused on the reward, because that shit's going to cloud your work, you know?
Yes. Absolutely. It's, and you know, it starts, we try and get them at the high school level thinking about that right from the beginning. Like, we require like the hardcover, hardbound black professional sketchbooks, and the kids are always like, well, can't I just get the one with the rings? It's like $5 cheaper. No, like, this is how you're representing yourself.
Right.
Like when you bring that book to an admissions review, it immediately says, I don't screw around. Like, you take me seriously. Like,
for sure.
They need to realize right from the get-go that the way they present themselves in every aspect of their quote-unquote brand is reflected on them before somebody even sees what their work is.
Right, yeah. Before they even open it, you know.
Yeah.
They are judging a book by its cover.
Yeah.
Exactly.
They do.
So then, Ryan, let me ask you, how did you combat that to get to, because you have work that can be pigeonholed, for lack of a better term, or, you know, kind of like, I don't want to say demeaned, but not viewed on the same level as a painting, or something like that. So how did you combat that? Did you experience that in the beginning stages where people are like, I don't really see that as artwork per se?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the biggest thing was I would put something on the internet and I would just get some, you know, John Q. Public being like, I want to buy that. And then they don't really understand what went in to make it and stuff. And I'll say how much it costs. And they're like, oh, well, you know, I could do that. I'll do it myself.
But you won't do it.
Yeah, and it's like, all right, well, go ahead, you know. And but I feel like outside of that, I was lucky enough to, you know, early on, Black Book Gallery, who I still work with now, and I was a fan of them, and they came to me and said, hey, you know, we've been watching what you're doing. We want to have you come to a show. And it was kind of like, you know, swing, you know. So from there, you know, once I kind of got the attention, and before that I had, you know, talked with a few other galleries and other options, but they weren't what I wanted. And I'm all about holding out, you know. I'm not like
not taking that first bite.
Right, because I was busy making art. It's not like I was like, oh, I gotta, you know, as soon as they put the bait in front of me, I was like, let's do it, you know. And so I I held out, and when a gallery that I really admired came to me, that's when, like, I didn't care what anybody said. I knew right there that this was sellable art, because they sold art, and I already knew they sold art. I followed them, and they looked at my art and said we could sell that. So I still get people that are like, oh well, that's flea market stuff, and it's like,
I'm sure I could see that.
I'm building myself an empire from this flea market shit. So think what you want, because all I care about is making art and living the best life for me and my family, So I do.
But I think that's a great philosophy for you to have, especially in light of the fact that, MK and I can appreciate the work simply because we know the craftsmanship that goes into it.
Right.
MK and I are huge. We're huge fans of process, period. Like any kind of process. I don't care if it's sculpture. I don't care if it's painting, printmaking. If you have a mastery in a certain area, I'm going to gravitate towards finding out about it and wanting to get to know who you are, because your mind works in such a way that I'm intrigued by what you see in your process.
I can see that, yeah.
So like for us, that's why MK feels the same way that I do. We talk process all day long at work. We're always in between classes. Like even when it comes to creating new projects, we're always like, well, what are they going to learn through this? What technique are they going to learn through this? If it doesn't feel right to us, if it doesn't feel like it fits into something that's going to help them down the line, we're not going to bother with it.
Yeah, makes sense.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
it makes sense. So so for us to walk us through your process with what you're doing, because a lot of people don't realize that everything that you're doing is all from scratch by hand.
Right. So I mean, it all starts with a drawing. I have to sketch it because I'm traditional in that way. But then it's funny because from a sketch, which mainly 9 times out of 10 is to show either myself if I'm making it for me or to sell, or to show the collector who's commissioning it. It starts with a little thumbnail or a series of thumbnails and a relatively polished sketch to show the plan of attack is what I say. And then from there I go typically to the computer and or a mock-up. I'll do a mock-up if it's something more involved out of cardboard, just to get my overall structure down. Let's say I'm making a building or a facade. I would mock it up out of cardboard just with masking tape, because it's easier for me to build that up in front of me in little pieces of cardboard and then take it down and extrapolate measurements to bring it to the computer
So it's almost like reverse engineering for you.
Kind of
like you're putting it together and then taking it apart to see how it fits.
Yeah. I kind of jump a bunch of steps and kind of cut out shapes to be like, okay, well, here's the front, and there's a little alcove there where the door is. So I'll make a little pocket and I'll cut the strips and, okay, well, it's 1 inch deep. So I'll make, and and then from there, then I kind of back step and I take that pocket apart and I'm like, okay, well, this inner wall is 1 inch by 10 inches and the back wall is this. And so I break it down, and I don't know how, I've never been a big smarty pants or anything, but I have a visual imagination like anyone I've ever seen. So where sometimes, I'm not going to sit here and say I have mental issues, but sometimes my mind I'm so visual that I get myself into dark thoughts because I can think of stuff that becomes so realistic in my head. I bog myself down,
Do you find, Ryan, sorry to interrupt, but do you find that sometimes, like I could see for our kids, does that paralyze your creativity at times?
Yeah. So, I mean, and I'll say it, I battle with this constantly. And, I've had general anxiety my whole life to where, I'm okay and I take medicine for it. But if I didn't and I get into a slump, it very much paralyzes me. To where when I became a full-time artist, that first time I kind of had a bout, with my anxiety. And I went into like 2 weeks of just couch surfing. I didn't want to come down here. And it was not related to art. It could have been, my mom has health issues, and that could have been affecting it. But it very much connects to, for me personally, my emotion to my art, to where when I became a full-time artist and I had that bad thing happen to where it took me out of work for 2 weeks, it was like, whoa. It was essentially like I got sick and couldn't go and collect a paycheck for 2 weeks. Where I really started to take it serious, to where your mental health is very important, especially when you work by yourself in a basement. And it's like, I laugh too about it, but coming from like an office where every day I'd come in and have a few chats with my coworkers and stuff, to going to being like, I work alone all the time. There's no meeting at the water cooler. There's no holiday parties. There's no nothing, and like that can affect you too, to where being a full-time artist, I would tell anyone who's doing it or thinking about doing it, is you have to take care of your mind and your mental health just as much, because I can't speak for everyone, but I assume the majority of creatives, if they're in a bad mood, whether they're mad or sad, they probably aren't creating to the best of their ability, because they're awfully distracted, you know? And I've almost turned it around to where, if and like I said, I take medication for anxiety, to where I'm very critical of my mood, and I won't go down to work if I'm feeling not with it, because
that's interesting.
I have projects down here that are valuable, to where if I come down here on a bad day and just
you may smash it.
well, not even smash it, but like, I have all this time put in this ferry that I'm building, and then let's say I have a bad week and I'm not doing good work, then it's like, oh man,
then it reflects on the work.
And it's like, what are you doing? So it's kind of
like an athlete playing with like a broken leg or something like that.
Right. Yeah. You have to be mindful of it. And before I became a full-time artist, to me, that was just like, okay, that's some artist hooey. All right, buddy.
Right.
But like, now that I've been in the boat for a while, it's like, no, you very much, like, even to where I don't watch certain, like, I don't read the news. I'm like known in my family and my circle as being completely out of the loop. Like, I go out of the way to not know current events, because
it'll affect you.
It affects me sometimes greatly. And I get shit from some of my friends that are like, you're burying your head under a rock and stuff. But I always say, there are people that we need to be happy all the time, because we're the ones that are making the pretty things in the world that
make other people happy.
I'm like, so you guys go worry about what's going on in the world, because I have to stay down here and have to just focus on making art for my own health, and for, in my mind, everyone's health.
But you know what, Ryan, I think there is an admiration on our end for your self-awareness of that. The fact that you can recognize that in yourself and say, there are times where I'm not going to be creative because I just can't. I think that in these past 7 months, we have heard that so much from our students,
and also the people that we've interviewed too. A couple of people.
But the minute that pandemic hit and we lost touch with our students and the contact of having them in the room every day, and the exchange, the mental exchange between what they were making and mentoring them and helping them, a lot of them fell off the grid creatively.
I believe
and really struggled, and it showed in the quality of the work that they were handing in before the end of the year. Like, we were trying our best to keep them engaged, and that's really the whole point of why we started the podcast, was like, hey, there are other creative people that are struggling right now. You're not by yourself. This is, you might be 16, 17 and feel like the whole world's crumbling, but there's 40, 50, 60-year-old artists who are feeling exactly the same way right now. You know? So, but to hear you say that and say, hey, look, man, sometimes I can't function enough to do what I have to do. I think that takes a huge amount of pride to say that. And I think that that's a great thing, that you're able to publicly admit that, you struggle too. It's, you're human, dude.
Well, and it's one of those things that, like, I don't hide anything on the internet, and I feel like my feed is for artwork. I post artwork there, but my stories, like you guys know from following me, that's where I like to have a little fun and I show me, and my life and personality.
Yeah.
But even there, like if I'm in a funk, like to me, Instagram is a tool. I don't hang out on Instagram. Like I get on Instagram and I watch cooking videos at night when I shouldn't be watching cooking videos, because then I go eat everything in my fridge. But like to me, Instagram is the same. It's right there with the artwork, to where if I'm in a down mood or something, I don't want to be on the internet. I don't get on Instagram, and then I don't post. And then, it affects, or at least in my mind, it affects my content and me gaining followers, and ultimately me having an audience to sell work to. So that's when it's like, oh, because then I'll get bogged down on that. And it's like, who cares? To me, part of my process, aside from building, is like I have a commission board where every time I get a commission, I take one of these, which is a dry erase piece of MDF. They usually have a hole in it. And I write the project and the details and how much I'm making, yada, yada. And so anytime I'm feeling like bogged down, especially about producing artwork or making money off artwork, I just look at my commission board and be like, hey, there are jobs here, just because there's not lining up out the door on Instagram, or there's not a ton of followers every month, or you're losing followers, it's all bullshit. It's all fake in a way, it's all just digital. So I just, that's a reminder to myself to be like,
that's reality.
That's reality. Exactly. Not what's in your phone,
But it's nice to hear that you're finding inspiration in the reality. Like your inspiration is the job that you're doing. Like you have people that want your work, that are willing to commission you, and that's where you're finding the inspiration to work. Not going on and looking at a feed and saying, "Oh, so and so, I got to keep up with the Joneses and do it like that."
Yeah, I'm actually the opposite. I a lot of people, like, I get messages a lot of people that follow me, and they flat out ask me to follow them, or they say, "Hey, come follow me, come like my artwork," and it's nothing personal. And I typically don't, because I'm the kind of guy that like I said, I have so much going on in my mind. I don't need to look at other artwork to get jump started. And every day I wake up, and this is going to sound corny, but just the fact that I get to live comfortably with my wife and my little son, and all from art, and I get to come down here and make art, and I get to do whatever I want all day while I'm making art. That is what inspires me to continue. It's what keeps me hungry, and that's why sometimes if it's ebb and flow. If you have a bad month or a bad week or what have you, you kind of have to like squint and look through the darkness and be like, no, it's okay. It's not always about making, loading up work to come in, So
let me ask you, Ryan, during the quarantine, what kept you motivated? Is that what kept you motivated to work?
Well, to be honest, guys, the pandemic is terrible. But quarantine's been an absolute blast for me.
I feel like you're always quarantined. Like, I said to Tom, I'm like, after we spoke the other day, I'm like, like in the Saturday Night Live, the weird guy, the guy that lives in the van down by the river, I'm like, he's the artist that lives in the basement down.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I said to, you don't really see you like you're in the basement. You're like outside cooking on, in the backyard. And then it's like, there's nothing really else. It's like, I just always like, you're like, in my mind, you're like, like you have a cartoon character, like Charlie Brown always has the yellow shirt with the stripe. You're always in your basement. You never leave the basement.
Right. Well, and that's exactly it. Like I partied my ass off in my 20s, literally to where I haven't touched alcohol in years. I didn't even have alcohol in my own wedding. So I never go to the bars. The number one thing I miss is going out to eat. And, ever since I had a little son, we don't do that much either, because you guys know it's a nightmare. But I feel like quarantine, the hardest part, which has been the best and the hardest, is having my son out of daycare, because, you know, me being a full-time artist, my wife works full-time. So our son does go to daycare, because, you know, as you guys know, up to a certain point, I can't make art with a little tyke.
Oh, there's no way. That's not happening.
Yeah, not consistently, you know, not to where I'm a professional. Like, I have deadlines, I have to do stuff, you know. But having him home, and then having, eventually, when it went full quarantine, my wife started working from home. So it was all three of us in the house, and I kept track for 102 days. It was me and my son, never one day apart. And, you know, so outside of the challenge of trying to continue to make art, with him around, it hasn't been hard. And actually, I get asked, hey, have you felt any negative business from this quarantine?
I was just going to ask that next.
And to be honest, I mean, you know, and knock on wood, let me find some wood. I'm very superstitious. Huge superstitions. A lot of the people who buy my artwork and collect artwork, I think, are the types of people that are still working and they're doing okay. They're just at home. They can't go to the bars. They can't go out to eat. So they're like, what am I going to do besides buy shit online?
So in a way, it works to your advantage.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm very blessed. I count my blessings every day. And I never would want to come off as, you know, being like cocky about it. But I've been lucky enough to have a smooth business dealings through this terrible stuff, where I know a lot of people, personal friends of mine too, that are not so lucky, to where it's terrible. And so I get that, but luckily I've had a steady flow of work through the pandemic. And even so, like I was saying over the course of the week with you guys, I set myself up, even when I wasn't making a lot of money, I was always about having that financial safety net. You know, I've lived on my own since I was 18. So I feel like, you know, and that wasn't at a college dorm room. That was a apartment with 5 guys where we drank every day partying. I mean, ever since that, you know, that time in my life, I liked the comfort of saving money for a rainy day. So when the pandemic started and the quarantine, there was a little bit of time, because the pandemic and stuff got going right around when I normally don't have a lot of work. You know, right after the holidays, it's the new year.
That's interesting.
Not a lot of, I do a lot of stuff during summer, fall, and before Christmas. And so I kind of, you know, I had a month where it was like, ooh, what's going on? You know, a lot of spending money without money coming in, to where I was worried, but, you know, I had that safety net to where, you know, I was able to protect myself. But that's why it's very important to.
I was just going to say, these are all things that they don't teach you.
No, they don't.
In art school, like, they don't teach you how to file taxes, or how to sign contracts, or how to read contracts, or you know, that's really part of the importance of this program. Also, is to expose our students to the realities of what it's like. Where you know, you're going to go through times where you don't know if you're going to get paid for the next 2 weeks. Like you said, like there is some trepidation with, am I good enough to keep this going? But to me, based on what we've seen of your work and your work ethic, Ryan, I think that you set yourself up way before the pandemic based on your reputation and your work ethic. And I think a lot of that is what helped get you through. People are going to come back when they know that you've been there before, and that the work ethic is still there.
Yeah. Well, and that's another thing I think they don't teach you in art school, especially fine art school, because, like, you know, you have to be business savvy. You're selling your own product. You're your own business. But then on top of all that, you have to make good art. And then on top of all that, which I put at the top of the cake, is you have to be the nicest motherfucker on the block.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't fake it.
I love to hear that.
I'm this nice to everybody, you know, provided you're nice to me. But like, I, you know, and coming from the design background where I worked for a company that I had to follow brand standards, I had to do exactly what I was told, to where I fought that a lot because I was right out of college. I was in my mid-20s. I was feisty. I wanted to create, to where now if a collector is having me commission them something and they want it a darker color than I think, or hey, make this taller, this whatever, I will work with them. Even if I disagree, I will put on a smile and say, you got it. Because yours,
in the end, it's theirs, I guess.
Dude, they are giving me their heart. You know how hard it is to make money? And they're giving it to me to make something to where I will, if you tell me to make it with my pants off, I probably will. I want you. And I've done this for 4 years now, to where now I actually have proof. The proof is in the pudding. I have handfuls of collectors that I worked with years ago that have come back and they're like, oh man, working with you is awesome. You know, because another thing, like, I'm really adamant about communication. You know, I'm the type of guy that as soon as I meet you within the 5 minutes, I'm going to know if we jive or not. Like, you can put a bad taste in my mouth very quickly, especially at like a doctor's office or something where like, or like if I'm calling a car dealer or like to get my oil changed, if you're rude on the phone, it's like, okay, goodbye. I'm going to go to someone else.
I hear you on that. It just drives me nuts.
Yeah. It's a, you know, it's in my market. I can go and I don't have to use you, sort of thing. So,
but that's also the business sense in you, because you know how good business should be run. And then when you see people that aren't running their business properly, you get angry. You don't want to do business. You don't want to do business with them.
Yeah, it's like, and it's because like whether if I'm buying new tires from you or getting an oil change or buying a piece of artwork, it doesn't matter. I'm going to have a business relationship with you for a course of time where we're going to have to challenge some hurdles together. There's going to be, we're going to be exchanging money. We're going to be talking money, which is another thing they don't teach you in school. How to professionally go about getting the amount of money you want tastefully. And then art is, to me, is, you know, people haggle. You know, if you say, hey, I'll do it for $3,000, they'll say, can you do it for $2,000? And then you have that time to be like, no, this isn't a garage sale. Fuck off. Or be like, okay, do I want to make a little money or no money without cutting yourself short or, you know, whatever.
Well, let me ask you that, Ryan. How does that, because that segues perfectly into this next question. I mean, I hate to cut you off, but it just,
that's all right.
If somebody tries to, for lack of a better term, lowball you, cut you at the knees, what is the determination between, do I need this money and sacrifice what I can make down the line? Because then you get the reputation like, well, I got this from Ryan Thomas Monahan for $2,000 instead of $4,000. You should try doing it too. Like, how do you juggle that?
Yeah. So, luckily I haven't had too much trouble with that, where I've been called out for being like, hey, they got it for this. I do have some collectors, groups of collectors that are friends. And they've talked and I've had to explain things to where it's like, okay, well, they got this price because of this, you know? And, but it's one of those things where it's funny because if I'm, you know, not that busy, if I don't have a lot of stuff on my board and it's like, hey, this is a cool project, but this person doesn't have an arm and a leg to do it, I'll do it for that price.
Because you want to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's interesting.
To me, it's I want to make it, and B, it's about me putting my artwork out in someone's home and getting some money for it. But like, I'm not trying to get rich off you. You know, like I am trying to make money, but I'm not trying to get rich off you to where it's like, I need to take you for everything I can. It's like, let's, you know, I try to work with you to be like, well, let's do this. This is more in your price, you know, or something like that. But ultimately, if I don't have a lot going on and it's a cool project, I've worked my price down to be closer to the low ballers. And I wouldn't even call them low ballers because to me, I know my art, I know my pricing bracket, how I how I price things, I'll sniff out a lowballer right away, and I know how to handle that tastefully.
Right.
I don't even get into an interaction with them. I try to find out their ballpark right away and be like, this is how much it is. If we can work together, we can go on, but there's no need in us talking further about it. If we're not, if you're over at home plate and I'm over at third base, it's like we got to get closer together.
Right. Yeah. And that can be a very uncomfortable conversation to have. And that's not something that's easily taught to somebody to do either.
Right. Well, and these days, like now it's all via text. And I don't know, if you've ever texted a 7-year-old man.
It can be read the wrong way.
Yeah, they text a lot different than a 27-year-old chick,
young
fella. That sounds really great, as opposed to like K, just the letter K.
And you're like, oh my God, they said K. And then your mind starts going and you're like, oh.
But to me, I'm trained that way because like, I text with my dad. He sends the letter K. And I always joke, like, if I sent the letter K to my wife,
forget it.
Text, I'd be getting an earload. I have to say, okay, hon, okay, babe, talk soon, okay, But so it's one of those things.
At least throw the O in front of the K.
Yes,
you're right.
But it's one of those things that is a whole nother challenge. It's via text. You're saying these sometimes tender topics, and then eventually, if you're lucky, you start selling artwork around the world, and then you're talking to people in another language via text about separate currencies, trying to sell art that way. Wow. And I've had that conversation plenty of times with people in different countries to where, you're trying to do commissions to where, like I said, people are very involved when I do a commission with them. I send them updates. I send them process pictures that I wouldn't normally post. It's kind of like an experience. They like to be involved, and I want to involve them. But that opens up the avenue for them to put an input. Oh, well, let's do this, let's do that, and that's cool. I'm all for that. But then now you're dealing with someone who speaks a completely different language, trying to explain their aesthetic direction to me, and it's like, oh my God, so it's like you know.
And then plus, if you have to go back and change something, then that's time lost in a way. Then do you change? Then do you change your price and stuff? And that's what you almost have to consider when you price it out to begin with. These changes that may happen.
Right. Well, and that's something that I I always try to tell other artists. I nip that shit in the butt. I am very into a plan. I hook the plan together. I make a sketch. We talk about it, and that's the plan I go with. Now, there has been times where it's like, we're going to change, but the first thing I bring up is how there's going to be an influx in the price. We need to hash that.
And that's just the reality of it too.
Right. Because I've talked to other professional artist friends who have been in the situation where they charged X amount for a project. And then throughout the course of the project, even with contracts and shit, they're like, oh, let's do this. Let's do this. And unfortunately, he wasn't in a position or wasn't able to put his foot down and be like, stop. We can do all this. Here's how much it's going to cost. Just like the full project, I'll need half of it as a deposit to get going. And it's like, I don't lift a damn finger until I get the deposit. Because there are times, do your chops, whatever you want to consider it, where, I made a project, got it started without collecting a deposit, and then never hear from them again. And I've lost my time. I've lost my money. So you only need to do that a few times before you're like, I'm not going to do that anymore. Now, to me, just like you can't go to Walmart and walk out with your groceries without paying. You cannot get me to send you sketches of a plan and a commission agreement without sending me money, so I know you're ready to play.
Right. And it's also like, people don't go to the mechanic and say, all right, I need an oil change, and they get a price and say, oh, and then can you change the tires and give me new tires?
And then expect
that price to stay the same.
Exactly.
I wish it was like that.
Right.
The real world doesn't work that way.
Right. And I have no problem pissing in your Cheerios. Like, I am a nice guy, but like, to me, like I said,
Tom's going to say that line.
Like,
now.
I am a businessman when it comes to my art. my business is art, and I take it very seriously.
Again, that adds value to your work.
Right. And over the course of my professional career, it wasn't always that way. It's all trial and error. And it's because maybe they don't teach us that in school or what have you. But you kind of have to learn it on your own because, you know, like, for example, segueing into doing commercial art, where no longer am I having, you know, Dr. Bill who commissions me to make a piece of art for his office. Now I'm having, you know, Supercell, the video game company, who $60 million last year, is now asking me, little Ryan Monahan, to make something, to where it's like, you got to be mentally prepared in your head to talk business like a business.
Right.
Because, you know, on the other end, you sure as shit better know that they have lawyers, financial people, creative people. They have a business, and they're prepared. So you better be too, because you want to be taken seriously, you know?
Right.
So, you know, I don't know. That's a big thing that they don't teach in school that I definitely think they should.
Yeah. Ryan, let me ask you this now, because it begs the question, especially with what has happened through the pandemic and it hitting the art world in terms of the business side of it. Do you think because of that mindset, where some artists just don't have the patience to deal with all of that crap, that's what's going to keep gallery systems still alive? Because when you think about it, like, why do we really need a gallery? If you have the ability to sell online and you can sell through Instagram, like, I can see, I'm like, am I touching like,
no,
like a really like controversial, you know what I'm saying?
I feel like whenever we bring up galleries lately, Tom, it's always a controversial subject.
For sure.
Well, because a lot of artists are like, I don't know if I should, you know, say what I really think because so-and-so is still representing me, and like, but those kinds of things, like, that's really the gallery job. Like, I don't want to deal with a Japanese client who I don't understand currency. Like, that shouldn't be in my wheelhouse. I'm here to create.
Right. And that's exactly it. So if you don't want to handle that, and you're looking for someone to handle it for you, where they do the communication, all you hear is, hey, this guy wants this, and you know, this is how much you're going to make from it. You know, that is a direction. But no, I kind of cringed because, so galleries to me, you know, I work with 2 galleries, Kraus in New York City, and Black Book Gallery in Denver. And that was strategy. I purposely wanted a gallery on the West Coast and a gallery on the East Coast. And from the get-go, I set out to have a gallery on both coasts. And I didn't want to work with more than 2 galleries because, like we said, from the early on, from my little shop at home, I sold the 3 pieces I made. And boy, I love a lot of stuff in this world, but nothing gets my rocks off harder than selling my own artwork. And you know, selling, it doesn't matter if you're selling it for $20 or $20,000. The fact that, you know, at least for me, it is super engaging and almost hypnotic. And it's funny because, you know, I'm sure, like you guys having families, I'll be upstairs with my family and I'll be on my phone, and my wife will be like, Dad, can you get off your phone? And all I have to say is, I'm talking business. and everyone knows that, okay, that means he's talking to someone about a commission or selling a piece of art. And to me, the idea of striking while the iron is hot is very important. You know, if someone contacts me and says, hey, thinking about doing a commission, I will pull my car over and talk with them. I will put down my joint. I will do anything to stop and talk with them, because, you know, there is, I don't want to make up a percent, but there's a big chance that they're going to pop right then. They're ready. They want to buy. So I want to put the time in, hear their idea, talk with them, and then get them on my board, because I want to make money, of course, support my family. I want to make art, and I don't want to have to, I don't want to be known as the guy that's like, oh, well, I hit him up, I never heard back from him. And I already have that reputation, I feel, with my Instagram, you know, like I try to respond to comments.
I don't know, you answered to our DM pretty damn quick.
Yeah. Well, see, that's the other thing. To me, business, and a podcast. I'm always down for this stuff if I can fit it in and stuff, and you know, if it works with my schedule. But you know, it's kind of one of those things that I don't hang out on the internet, so I'm not sitting around waiting to respond to a comment, and you know, but it's important for me to the reputation of being good at communication and talking to someone right there.
Right. So let me ask you, Ryan, how important is it to have those two galleries representing? What do they do for you? What is it that they do for you? No, that's okay.
I got
it's
off
great.
on a tangent.
No, that's fine. but like, because a lot of our kids don't understand what a gallery system is even for at this point.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, let's reel it back. Wow. Okay. Yeah. So the galleries, you know, they're important, and I always wanted to work with the gallery, and I still continue to this day. But to me, I'm not represented by them. That's a big difference.
Okay. I was just going to ask that. Like, is there any kind of agreement where, like, consignments, and because the fact that you even have two is very unusual.
Yeah. So what it is if you're represented by a gallery, that's a lot more hands-on with the gallery and the artist. They work together. It's a long-term relationship, that kind of thing. What I do with my galleries is it pretty much just started with them inviting me to a show, and we started our relationship. And then, so I create a few pieces to participate in a show, whether it be with a group of artists or someone's having their own solo show where you just same thing, but you make a lot more artwork. And then, you know, that body of work is made specifically for that gallery to be sold via that gallery, to where I hand it all over to them. They handle every aspect of it, selling, shipping, communicating, and I just get paid. Now, that is the extent of what I do with my galleries. That's where it starts and ends. Now, I did that with Kraus and Black Book a couple years ago, and then we did it again. You know, I was invited to another show. So it's kind of like we have this ongoing relationship where I try to have a few pieces for sale in their galleries at all times, whether there's a show going on or not. But at the same time, now Ben and all the other guys that I work with at the galleries, I hope they don't take offense to this. At the same time, from my business point of view, is I don't want all my artwork to be sold through galleries, because I thoroughly enjoy selling my artwork, like I was saying, to where it's not only a financial thing, because when you sell through a gallery, you're giving part of the money to them, a cut, and that varies on your relationship, how long you work together. It usually starts at 50-50, and then as you kind of grow and let's say things change, you can adjust that, you know. But I don't want to relinquish all the responsibility of selling the artwork, because I love that aspect.
And plus, it's like you said before with like your social media, you have two different groups of clientele. You have that group that'll spend a couple $1,000s, and you'll have that group will spend like $300. You know what I mean? And then if you're just selling galleries, you're kind of pricing that. You know, that
what
group
the gallery's
out,
cut is too.
Right. Well, and so that's another thing. When I developed the quote unquote smalls, I from the get-go always said, okay, these are for me. These are for me to make and sell. And I was approached by many galleries when the Bellevue Doors series was getting going, being like, hey, let's have a show. You put up all the doors. It'll be awesome. And I like the idea of that, but it's one of those things that the whole idea of those pieces were designed to be to where I design them, make them, and sell them all within a couple days.
How many doors did you end up making?
Oh, I've made, well, in the series, there's like
the series.
110.
Wow.
But in there's probably well over 200.
And they were gone right away.
Yeah, and it's funny because it kind of took off to where it became, it was, you know, I hate to say it like this, but it was easy money. I enjoyed making them so much to where I would spend Wednesday night drawing them in my sketchbook, and then Thursday cutting stuff, making stuff, painting stuff, assembling them. Then Friday, frame them all, photograph them, do like a whole little like marketing pitch every week. And for, you know,
let me ask you a question. When you something like that, it's going hot, you're making them, you're selling them, what makes you stop making them?
Well, yeah, so I don't
like why, like I'll be like, I'll just keep banging out these doors for the rest of my life,
dude. And it became to where I would try to make, well, the Bellevue doors, I'm making a video all about them, kind of discussing it, because it all started, I made one of them, one little door in a frame, and I tried to sell it for $175. Because I thought, hey, I made a whole storefront for, you know, $1,500. How about just the cool door for $150? Nothing. Crickets. No one would buy it. So I was like, okay. Then fast forward like 5 months, I was in the thick of the Bellevue door series. I would make 5 of them a week, and they would each sell between $200 and $300. And every week I did it as long as I could. Then, that was a byproduct of having free time between bigger projects. Wanting to fill the void of having something small to sell. So now, as you can imagine, that's what happened. You know, this was in 2017. So now my career has changed to where I mainly work by commission. I have a list of people who want me to make stuff for them, to where I'm now scrounging to find time to be like, I want to bang out a Bellevue door. Because, you know, I have people who collect Bellevue doors that have 5, 6, 7, 8 of them. And they're like, hey, are you ever going to make more? Is it over? And it's like, I don't want it to be, but I have to find time.
You know what I love about this whole idea, Ryan, is that it's like your version of the affordable print. Like a painter who makes like a 36 by 48 one-off painting, but everyone's like, how can I get that same thing? And you're like, you know what? You're an everyday person. You don't have $8,000 to spend on it. How about a $75 print version? This is like your version of that in sculpture form.
100%. And I feel like, you know, I never want to stake claim to anything, because, you know, you don't want to do that. But I'll say this. I feel like in the realm of little sculptures, I feel like in the miniature world, creating the idea of a small miniature sculpture that is affordable in comparison to the big one, that was all me. It's all me.
Well, it was a really good idea, because you see them from other people now too, and other things.
Well, and like I said, it probably wasn't me, because we all think the same. Everyone's like, hey, how can I make something that I could sell that's not big? You know, so it probably wasn't me. I also thought I invented the Beanie Baby when I was young. You know, I mean, it's just one of those things that, like, it's exactly like a print, because, and I come from the paper world, the paint world, to where, like, I have boxes of fine art prints of mine that I couldn't sell worth shit 15 years ago, you know, in my storage area, to where that's, I've never really put that label on it, but that is exactly what it is.
That was a good time.
You know what? But you know what it is? You know why I can relate to that? Because you have such an, like you said, you're authentic, but you're a blue collar dude. You know what I'm saying? Like, you understand the working man who can appreciate the art, but maybe can't go to a big white box gallery and buy something.
It's a lot of people's, your smalls are a lot of people's into beginning collecting.
Right. And that's how I am. I get asked all the time, you know, like, what's your art collection like? What do you buy? I'm not an art collector. I am that guy that thinks, oh, that's flea market shit. No, I'm not really that guy. But I come from the print world, where I got stacked. Like, my art collection is posters and prints, you know, where they were $45, $60, you know, screen prints and letterpress prints.
It's funny that you said that, because I said to Tom today, we were like going to the deli, and I said, like what is the type of stuff that you buy? Like, I think that you posted like a little rocket, I think that you got for your son's room.
Yeah.
And it was made by another artist. And I said, why did he buy that when he could just make it himself? And I said, well, I don't know, maybe you could answer that. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Like at what point are you saying like, well, I'm not going to buy that. I could just make it myself. You know?
And it's actually the opposite now. And, like, I'm not a, I spend my money, but like I said, I'm a saver. So, and I'm just now starting to where, my college debt's going down finally. I have a little bit of money in my pocket to where I'm like, okay, I don't have to be such a tight ass, to where I'm feeling like a while ago felt compelled to start buying artwork. Just for the sake of buying artwork, because like I truly, I get in these moods where I'm so damn thankful. I'll cry. I'll fucking cry by myself in my basement. And like I said, I'm a very superstitious person. I get that from my mom. But I will never vocalize how lucky I have it, how blessed I am. I'm living the fucking dream, because
for fear that it's going to crumble.
It could be crumbling. I could die tomorrow. I could lose my hands. Who knows? So, I got to a point where I felt very grateful that people were spending their hard money on my art. And I kind of started to feel like a shithead because I don't ever buy art.
It's like you needed to pay it forward, kind of.
Dude, exactly. And it all started, I don't know, like a year ago. There was this guy. I follow a lot of sign painters. I love sign painting, lettering.
Me too.
Yeah, I was going to say, you and MK can talk sign painting all day.
Yeah, dude. So, and there was this guy I followed on the internet, and he posted this real sad story, and about how he's down on his luck and he's trying to make it as an artist. And he posted up these 5 different paintings he made, little signs. And I was like, I'm gonna buy one. I told my wife, I'm gonna buy one. It's $100, I'm gonna buy one. And I bought it, and I felt so good about it. I felt good. He felt good. I really liked what I got. I was like, this is
everybody
cool,
wins. Everybody wins.
And from that point on, I started buying little things, mainly from people I follow on the internet and artist friends.
Yeah, one thing I love that you have is the mug from Tim Ceramics, Instagram.
Yes.
I love that mug.
Yeah. I have 5 mugs of his.
Oh my god, his stuff is crazy.
They all have my logo on them.
Oh really?
Awesome.
Yeah, he made them for me. We did a trade. And I gave one to my mom, one to my dad. I have one on display, and then I have 2 that I drink from.
Those you can't get those either right now. They're up and they're gone.
Yeah, I love Tim's work, man. Yeah. I had the lucky event of him coming to my house and hanging out.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we both work with Black Book Gallery, and that's where we met. And he's a fellow Midwest boy. He only lives like 3 hours south of me in Illinois.
Oh, okay.
And he was going into the city to teach a class, and he was like, "Hey, I'm coming through your area. Let's hang out." And he came, and we stood around the workbench and talked and hung out, and he brought me those mugs.
Oh, wow.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, he is, speaking of a blue-collar worker, I consider him that. And those are people that inspire me, too. Not so much what they're making, because we don't have similar art in that way.
Right.
But the fact that I can tell, it's not about how you talk or dress or act. One artist can tell from another artist when that person gets up and breathes art. Every touch is related to art, to where you could see that man loves mugs so much.
He does love his mugs.
And it's funny because to me, before I got Tim's mugs, I didn't give a butterfuck about mugs. We've got 100 mugs in our kitchen that I've never touched because I drink out of the same mug every morning, rinse it out, put it back next to the coffee maker. And but it's one of those things that like he has such a passion about mugs because
it's contagious.
Well, and I don't know, I know he does all sorts of work and he does great stuff, but I think these cardboard mugs fucking put him on the map.
Yeah,
like that is his. Looking. It's almost like that's what I consider my Bellevue doors.
Yeah.
If somebody started making a cardboard ceramic mug, I'm sure Tim and the rest of us would be all over that dude's ass or her and being like, whoa, that's a little too close, you know? And that's kind of how I feel about the Bellevue doors, to where I would never, that's another thing we could get into. I would never razz or harass another artist for doing something like if they made a little door and put it in a frame and started selling them. I can't take ownership to that, you know, nor should I be able to. Would it hurt my feelings? Yeah, because to me, that is something that not only has it's 3 years old, and I've made a lot of doors which equal a lot of money, to where it's like a little brand that I protect now, to where like 2 years ago, there was a gentleman, there was Mexican bootleg Bellevue doors. And I went after him so hard. And I didn't do it publicly. I didn't like post his stuff and call him out and make an example out of him. But I approached him because he took the Bellevue door logo and took my name off it and put his name on it. And
Unreal.
It was like, okay, you got it. You're going to get a cease and desist so fast, my friend. I'm going to give you a chance to just call this quits. And he did. And I blocked him because that's my number one, you know, that's how I'll get you. Ha! I'll block. You know?
Well, I think the Bellevue doors. Tell you, in that vein now, so when you start using the whole phrase, it is the affordable print version, I want credit for that.
Yeah, you got to tag Tom in that.
You bet your ass I won't say it. Yeah. I'll be like the affordable poster. Change it a little bit.
Yeah.
But no, it's one of those things, you know, that I protect it. You know?
Yeah. But it's also one of those things that, like, people could do it, but it's like they're special because you're doing them. It's the same thing with Tim and the mugs. Like, it's not going to be special unless he's making it.
Right. And it's because he puts the insane little detail because he loves it. He loves that mug because it's a mug that he made, not because he's like, hey, there's $200.
Like, that's the thing. When you're banging out these doors, it never feels like you're banging out these doors. No. It feels like when you're making that door, you put like 10 weeks into it. And I think that's why people love them, you know?
Right. And I think, you know, this was so long ago, so I don't care about talking about this guy. Yeah. But the guy in Mexico who wanted to take the Bellevue doors and make him himself, he, you know, I think what really annoyed me was that I put so much effort into the development of the whole idea, being like, I need an idea of something to sell. Okay, it'll be a door. And then, you know how hard it is to think up 100 doors and have them look different and have them, you know, there's so much criteria that went into figuring out what each door was going to be to keep it.
You probably know more about doors than anybody now.
And kind of, I mean, and it was one of those things that it was always loose and fun, to where, you know, if I couldn't come up with an idea or an idea didn't take off on a Wednesday when I was making it, okay, I only did 4 this week.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. Because it was never about, I got to make $1,000 this weekend selling doors.
Yeah.
Was it cool if I did? Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, we ate out that weekend. You know? But you know, I think the proof is in the pudding when it's made by who it is. A copycat.
Of course. Yeah. Right. You know? Right. Absolutely.
I think though that in all due respect, I think that's every artist's biggest fear. I know personally, I have, you know, artist friends. One in particular I can think of. She's a much older emerging artist. She's a printmaker, and I remember her telling me a story that she had another artist who was at that time her friend, who begged her to come in and see her studio and what she was working on. And my friend was very resistant to letting her come in because she was private about it. Woman comes in. She looks at all her stuff. She's, you know, commenting. Wouldn't you know it, a month later, she invites my friend to her show, and it's all of her stuff. And now my friend's like, you just ripped off everything that worse. I showed. I know, but like I think that's every artist's fear. Is like, that's why so many of us are close to the vest. Like, I'm not going to show you everything.
Yeah, for sure. And that's, you know, I also think it's one of those things that the more you get into your own career, your own success and stuff, you loosen the reins a bit. In a way. At the same time, sometimes you tighten them because now
you have more to lose now too.
Right, but at the same time, well, and I am very secretive with some stuff I do. I don't announce that it's a secret or let people know, oh, I'm hiding something, because then they just want to know more. And it's not so much a secret. It's just, I consider a proprietary skill.
It's intellectual property.
Yeah. And it's something that, like, you know, when I was making the miniature trash cans, everyone
I was just looking at those images again. Those
without using a 3D printer. Everyone thought they were 3D printed.
Yeah.
And I never would show how I did it. And until much later on. And I can say now that it's essentially a cut up little bottle with cut up tape and paper, and then all submerged in epoxy, and then cured, and then painted.
Wow.
So that's how I got like the real like blow molded effect, is soaking it all in epoxy.
Right. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, that was something for the longest time. You know, I wanted to protect it because I was making money off of it, and I put a lot of hard work. That's just like the trash cans. It took a lot of hard work for me to figure out what is something that's cool enough to sell. It has character, but it's something that fits, you know? So,
yeah, I mean, it's a timeless, for artists, that's a timeless topic. Like you can go all the way back to Vermeer using the camera obscura and not telling anybody that he used it. Sometimes it's great to share some of it, but sometimes the magic should stay there. You know?
Well, and especially in the dawn of technology, where everything, you know, everything we're doing and we're putting on the internet for anyone to see, and which is cool, you know. But at the same time, you know, you want to have a little whatever, like intellectual property. It's something that you developed and you worked hard to develop it, and you want to keep it your little trade secret. I don't think someone should be faulted for that either. Like, I think that's
and I like how you said that, Tom, about like the magic. It's like if you think about a magic trick and you have those people that reveal the magic trick, once the magic trick is revealed, people tend to not want to see that trick anymore.
Right. Like I want to truly believe that David Blaine has sold his soul to Satan. Like I don't want to know that like there's some way that he's figured out how to put a completely random card in my shoe under my foot without me knowing it. Like I want to know that that's like completely out of the ordinary. Like he's from another planet. I don't want to know how. I want to believe that, because it makes it that much more dynamic and effective. And I think that goes for any artwork.
Right, I agree.
You don't want to show all your tricks. MK, we are, holy cow! It's like
I know,
like an hour and 40 minutes. This is the longest chat we've ever had. Like I said at the beginning of the program, right? We are so honored to have you talk with us, because we've been fans of your work, bro, for so the craftsmanship, the authenticity of it. I mean, the fact that you're just like, you are like the most down to earth dude. Like,
thank you. That's what I try for.
Yeah. But it's legit, man. Like, it's not an act. We know it's not an act. It's it's who you are, and it's refreshing on so many levels. And it really goes, MK, to everyone we've talked to.
We've been so fortunate.
We've been very fortunate these past 18 episodes to find not just very talented people, but just real good people, man. In a time where everything is so bizarre and like personalities are like, really, did that person really just go on record saying that crap? You know what I'm saying? And you really believe that enough to say that out loud? Like, to get people like yourself who are just, you know, love what they do and passionate about what they do and genuine and want to share it, bro, that's the best of both worlds for us as educators and as fellow artists, to be able to share and get back and give and get back. I mean, there's nothing better, especially right now in this kind of climate, like for everyone to be so close-minded and not share with each other. It's just completely otherworldly for me to think
Well,
about.
and just like you said, we're all in basements, man. Just getting together and chatting.
That's the near, yeah. That's it.
As you get older, our time is limited visiting our friends and stuff. Like right here, I don't know you guys outside of talking over this week, but I had a hell of a time hanging out tonight.
Yeah, like this was great, and I agree. Seriously, Ryan, thank you for everything, for giving some time. I know how busy you are and the family and everything, but thanks so much for sitting in and.
Well, I enjoyed it, guys.
Just be yourself, bro. Keep doing what you're doing because we're just.
Yeah, and we're looking forward to seeing what you're doing. Every time you post something, it's like we love it. So keep it up.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thanks, dude. I had a great time.
Yeah, man. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and everybody who's going to be watching. And remember, like we say every week, be kind to one another, look out for one another, love one another, because we got to pull it all together, man. Like. This last 2 weeks at work have been a whirlwind, but MK, I got to tell you, if it wasn't for the crew we work with, man, if I had to do it by myself, I mean,
how many times did I say I'm going to jump out this first story window at work?
Oh my God. But you know what? Like, shout out to you and Miss Ehrlich and Mr. Lentini and Miss Turner, like our whole crew, like pulling for each other and being there for each other. Like, if we didn't have each other these 2 weeks, man, it would have been a nightmare. It would have been a nightmare. So, like, in society, just keep pulling for each other.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. Thanks to everybody. Thank you, Ryan Monahan.
Thank you, Ryan.
Love you, bro. Thank you so much for everything.
Thanks. Have a good night.
You too.
You too.
He was so good.
He's
really smart.
He's very smart. His business acumen
Yeah.
is very impressive. Yeah. Very impressive.